The Bible informs us of an event that will mark the starting point of the Great Tribulation. Jesus tells us about this in his end-time discourse. He said, "So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel," let the reader understand, "then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be." From this we understand that when the abomination that causes desolation is seen standing in the holy place, then the Great Tribulation will begin. We have therefore to find out where the holy place is and what the abomination that causes desolation is. According to Jesus, the prophet Daniel foretold this event. Turning to the book of Daniel, we find what Jesus referred to in chapter 11. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. It's plain to see the abomination that causes desolation will be set up in the temple. This is the site of the holy place where Jesus says the abomination that causes desolation will stand. These indicators definitely point to a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Notice what Jesus said when he prophesied about the abomination that causes desolation. He said, "Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." Judea is the ancient area where Jerusalem is situated. Seeing this as a prophecy of the end time, it must of necessity mean that a new Jewish temple will be constructed in Jerusalem. This is substantiated by the presence of Jewish groups who with increasing intensity are now preparing for the rebuilding of the temple. Suffice to say, both Paul and John wrote of a physical structure in the end time which they called the temple of God. Looking again at Daniel's prophecy, we see what will happen to the temple. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. What the daily sacrifice here entails is described in the law of Moses, where a prescribed offering is presented to the Lord as a regular burnt offering each day. Having in mind that Daniel's prophecy is going to be fulfilled in the end time, we must conclude that the ancient system of offerings will be restored when a new temple is built. Let's now move on to identify the abomination that causes desolation mentioned by the prophet Daniel and referred to by Christ. In Mark's version of Christ's end-time discourse, we see that it involves a certain man. "But when ye see the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not, let him that readeth understand. Then let them that are in Judea flee unto the mountains." This person seems to be the one Paul wrote about. He called him the man of lawlessness. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Here we see how the man of lawlessness will set himself up in God's temple, i.e. the end-time temple in Jerusalem. This explains what Jesus said concerning the man who will be standing where he ought not. The man we are looking at is undeniably the one who is mentioned in Daniel 11. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. From what is written earlier in Daniel 11, we understand this man is one of the kings mentioned there. He is also present in Daniel chapter 9. He will put an end to sacrifice and offering, and on a wing of the temple he will set up an abomination that causes desolation. The king who is spoken of here will put an end to sacrifice and offering. In other words, he will abolish the daily sacrifice. What then is the abomination which, according to the prophecy, will stand in a future Jewish temple in Jerusalem? It will be the man of lawlessness proclaiming himself to be God. This abomination will cause desolation in that it will bring an end to sacrifices in the new temple and spell out desolation in the city and the surrounding area. The man who will perpetrate the coming abomination that causes desolation is the one who the Apostle John wrote of. The Antichrist will enter the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem and declare himself to be God. According to Jesus, this event will mark the beginning of the Great Tribulation.